By the time they're, oh yeah, Facebook always comes up.
Yeah, it's first, and then that one catches it.
Yeah, so we're on. Yeah, it's good this time, isn't it, today? Mm. And Facebook usually, anyway, is all right like that. So.
Yeah.
Hello, Alison.
Hi, Alison. Always quick on it.
Greetings to everyone else who will be joining us, whether today or later. It's cool. It's all good. So, I'm going to have to refer to my notes. Aren't I?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to do it now. Notes and all.
Ah, right there. Oh yeah, here we are.
Greetings and salutations.
Yes, indeed.
Adam said lots of love last week.
Who?
Adam said.
Okay. So where were we? What we were saying last time? Because we said this is going to be part two. Oh yeah, we were going to start sort of talking a bit more when we're about who went into Jamaica, but I need to go backwards a bit, if that's okay. So we have decided after analysis that because we decided, in this time that we're in with the Black Lives Matter and all of this stuff, I think lots of people are looking at identity. They've got identity issues. Might be a little bit noisy because we've got the windows quite open and they're drilling outside. But we hope you can hear us. If you can't, let us know. So identity is something that we've been looking at. So we want to find out a bit more about our personal roots. And so, like I said, we said we're Spanish. And, people are like, what do you mean? What do you mean? How can you be Spanish? Well, slaves came from Africa and your people went to Jamaica from Africa. And, well, yeah, actually, some did, but not all. So that was what we had begun talking about, and we wanted to go into that a little bit deeper. So what I wanted to go backwards for was to have a look at who most of these black people were, who were already in Spain before slavery, and then they decided to expel. Remember we spoke about the expulsion, which they were what they call Jews. So let me just go backwards a bit on that subject about the Jews, because I think it's an important thing to look at. I'm not going too much into detail because it's not me preaching, but like I said, this is because we're looking at our identity and because we're looking at truth, right? And reality. That's what we want to look at, because for too long, history has given us only one version of the truth, or has given us only one story that all of us have to accept and all of us have to believe, and they expect you not to question it. And what usually happens, and it could be somebody that these people haven't known, and others of you may or may not know, but I know I've not discussed this with them. I'm going to tell you something that you'll find quite surprising. But what they usually do, anything which they, and when I say they, I mean, the powers that be, when they don't want you to accept it or believe it, they tell you it's either a myth, a fable, or a legend.
Yeah.
Those are the terms that they use. And so often when you see those words, myth, fable, or legend, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true. It means they don't want you to think that it's true, or they don't want you to investigate further to see if it's true or not. They want you to just dismiss it and accept their version of history. And as we quite well know, history is generally written from the viewpoint of the oppressor, the conqueror, or the victor. It's not written so much from the point of view of the oppressed, or the victim, or the defeated. So now we know that in order for you to have the real truth, you've got to look at both sides. You can't just look at history from the viewpoint of the oppressor, the conqueror, and the victor. You also need to look at it from the point of view of the oppressed, the defeated, and those who were conquered. So that's what we're doing here, and it's interesting to look at that and see some of the dynamics. So I look back, thought, let me see what went on. Historically, it is said as a fact that they know at least 250 years or so before the Moors, who were mainly Muslim, but not all, and the Moors were black Africans. Before the Moors came into southern Spain and conquered Spain and basically ruled it, as it were, around the year 711, a couple of hundred years before that, Jews were already living in southern Spain. So now the question then, this is where we came from, they don't say much about that, and they're like, well, okay, but they were already there. And they were already doing things. They had already established a lot of things, and the Moors continued because they were basically working together. And why did they find it so easy to work together? Because they're both black.
Yeah.
It wasn't, so there was no issue about, well, you're a Muslim and I'm a Jew and those are Christians. They didn't even, that wasn't even the issue, because actually all of them were black. Now that's interesting, because now some people are saying, oh really? So those Jews who ended up in southern Spain, they were black. How do you know that? Where do you get that information from? What's the proof? How come? Because nowadays Jews are saying that they're not black. Okay, let me break it down for you a little bit, because I found this interesting, because this is the reason why I tell you that I know that my ancestors who ended up in Jamaica as slaves, they're not Africans, they're Spanish, and I know that. So here's the information, here's the part that we missed, and it's because they didn't want us to know this. So you have to go back and look at King Nebuchadnezzar. And when King Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem, he conquered Jerusalem and he enslaved the Jews who were around Jerusalem. So now there's two things that we need to look at for us to understand this. Who did he enslave at that time? It was Judah. So now I don't want to give too much history and background about this, except to say that when we talk about Israel as a nation, or Israelis, which people use the term Jews, if you're talking about Jews, you're actually talking about Judah. Okay? When you talk about Jews and you mention that, it's not all of Israel. So, like I said, you'd have to go look in the Bible, and there's quite a lot. There's extent evidence which will substantiate my argument here. That originally we know Israel was one nation, one kingdom. Under King David, there was the kingdom of Israel, and there was Judah. David became king in Judah first, and then over all of Israel. Solomon was king over all of Israel after King David, the son of Solomon. Now, after Solomon, because Solomon decided to not listen to what God had told him, and he went off and married, as the Bible puts it, strange wives from strange nations. In other words, he married witches, basically. And we can talk about that another time, because there's plenty of them in the entertainment business, as you know, Beyonce being one of them. For those who didn't know. So he married witches, and he married a lot of them. And God said, as a result of what you've done, the kingdom is going to be divided. But the rulership, the leadership will never leave Judah. So what happened then when his son, Rehoboam, became king, 10 tribes went with Jeroboam, who was a general of the army, and there were only 2 tribes left with Rehoboam, which was the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. The tribe of Benjamin, because the first king over Israel came from the tribe of Benjamin by the name of King Saul. The tribe of Judah, because the Bible says that when the Bible says that when Jacob prophesied over his sons in the book of Genesis chapter 49, he said that the scepter will never leave Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. So in other words, that the rulership would never leave from that tribe. So basically, Judah and Benjamin amalgamated and became called Judah, and that was the kingdom of Judah. So you had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Now, it doesn't take a lot of brain power to look at this for what it is. All right, it doesn't take a lot of brain power. Simple basic geography will tell you the southern kingdom means exactly that. It was in the south. If you go and look at what they now lie and call the Middle East, which it was the British who decided to stop calling it Northeast Africa, which it is and was, because Israel is in Northeast Africa, but the British decided to lie and change it and call it the Middle East. Well, even so, whether they call it the Middle East or not, south of southern Israel, we get very black. Because below there, we've got Egypt, we've got Sudan, all right? And they're not very light-looking colored people.
No, they're not. They're dark.
Right? And the Bible tells us clearly that the southern kingdom, there were people from the southern kingdom who went down. So if they went down into the rest of Africa because they already were in Africa. So you got to understand that. And for them to go down into the rest of Africa and be amalgamated in the rest of Africa and not to have an issue, they must have looked like the other people who were around them. Even the Bible itself says that Jesus, when he was born and Mary and Joseph needed to hide him, Jesus and his black parents, and he also being black, they went and they hid in Egypt, which was also black. And they didn't stand out. If he was this blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy that they like us to believe that he was, there would have been an issue. They would have seen him. He couldn't hide. But the Bible says that they went and they hid there. Why? Because he was black.
So he couldn't establish which one.
Exactly. So he was just one of the other people. Now, why am I even saying all of this? Because we need to establish an understanding of who went where. Okay, and what was going on at that time, and also to establish who is who. Because now, when we say, well, we have our roots in Judah, no, how? It's not possible because they don't look like you. Well, actually, maybe you don't know who Judah is, because maybe those who say that they're Jews, they might be Israelis. They might be Israelis, but they're not Jews. Now, why would I say they might be Israelis? They might be of the other 10. The other 10 tribes, which they were the northern kingdom, and they were assimilated into Assyria and other nations to the north, such as Turkey and so forth. And we'll talk more about Turkey, if you like, because now Turkey is where the Khazari kingdom was. And from the Khazari, now I'm going fast because this is not really the whole point, but Turkey is where the Khazari kingdom was. Where the Khazar kingdom was is where the Ashkenazi Jews come from, who now are the dominant number of so-called Jews across the world. 99% of American Jews are Ashkenazi, which they come from that root, which basically Ashkenaz is one of the sons of Gomer, which can be found in the book of Genesis chapter 10 or there around, which speaks about those sons which were born from the sons of Noah and so forth after the flood. Now, these are the guys who make up all that, northern European area, such as, and now the Khazars, interestingly enough, just for your history, and you can go check this, around the same time that now the Moors, who were also black, were now beginning to work in Spain with the Jews who were already there, around 711, and putting culture into the whole of Europe, what they call the Renaissance period. It was those people, it was those Africans who brought that into Spain and disseminated it throughout the rest of Europe. Now, at the same time as that was happening, the Khazaris, if you like, from Turkey and that area there, which is Armenia and all of that there, they also were fighting the Arabs, and they stopped them from getting any further into Europe. And what now happened is that they converted, and they became converted Jews. See, but the issue now was that they actually stopped the move of Islam, and it's not coincidence. Just use your common sense, and it makes sense. It wasn't coincidence that they were stopping them there at that point while they had already gone into Spain. But here's the interesting thing: they say that the civilization of Spain and all of the things that were going on. Yes, when it was the blacks, when it was the Moors, it was the Moors, and they were Muslims. Because again, they're hiding some of the truth. Because here's the thing: at that particular time, around the 700s, the Muslim conquest to conquer the world was very strong.
Yeah.
So if it were the case, just listen to this. I'm giving you this as just a presupposition, and you make what you want of it. If it were the case that they had only just come into southern Spain, why would they stop at southern Spain and not begin going through the whole of Spain, off into Portugal, which they also were there, off into France and begin conquering all the rest of Europe through there? But they stayed in Spain, and they had a civilization. They had cities. They had libraries and all sorts of things going on. Why? Because they were settled. See, they were settled. Because they already were there before.
Yeah.
Right? But they've lied about who it was that was there. And this is what the issue, because if it was the Muslim conquest, the way that they put it, when they saw that the Khazaris had stopped them on that end, they would have gone stronger and gone on. But that didn't happen. But what did happen was that at the same time, they were building libraries, they were building roads, they were giving lighting, all kinds of things. There were so many things, street lights and all sorts. You know, Seville was one of the most built up cities in the whole of the world in those times. And they remained in power in Spain for around 700-800 years. Imagine that. But they've tried to say, oh yes, at that time Jews, Christians and Muslims were all working together in conglomeration. Well, actually they're right to a point, because what they missed, because they don't want to tell us, that it was black people who were all working together in conglomeration. And when they do work together in conglomeration, they can do great things. Let me tell you that. And yes, I may not only be speaking to black people now, but every black man, every black woman who's hearing me, hear me and hear me well. Because this is the issue, that divide and conquer is what this is all about. They don't want you to know who you are. They don't want you to know what you're capable of. They don't want you to know where you came from. They don't want you to know what you have already done as a people, because when you understand who you are, where you came from, what you're capable of, and what you can do together, there's nothing that can stop you. And that's what it was about. So, some in Spain, there were these people, they were all working together. Yes, they were, because it was black people working together. But they want you not to understand that. They want you not to understand that. So they try to confuse the issue about the history, and they're telling you who it was that actually was there. So now here's the other part to the whole thing. Who came there? How did they get there? How did these black people get there? I told you, Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem, and he took slaves. And they say now that this is just what do they call it? A legend and a fable. I don't believe that it is. I don't believe that it is a legend and a fable. I believe this is the truth. Nebuchadnezzar took slaves from Jerusalem, and he took them through Africa, and he took them into Spain. And he dropped them off in southern Spain and left them there. And that's how some of those Jews came into but there were some already there before that. But that's how many more came there at that time. And they came there, they weren't, these guys were not just ordinary slaves. This is what you also got to understand, because that's why we said last week that you've got to understand the whole issue of slavery. Slavery did not have the same flavor, all right, all over the world. And that doesn't mean that wherever it was that it tasted nice anyway, but some things taste more bad than some. So, you understand me. So it didn't have the same flavor. These were not just guys who they put to go and work out in the field and dig and dig a field and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Don't need it open anyway. So these guys now, they were already learned people. So they began doing the things that they began putting in banking systems and all kinds of things that were not in place already. And this is what you've got to understand. But the fact is that they don't want people to know that that was us. See? So when they even when they mention it and say that it was the Moors, oh yeah, but they were North Africans. They were brown.
Yeah, they weren't black.
They were brown.
No more was looking like me.
Well,
brown.
I'm
not.
But I don't really care. I don't really care whether they're brown or they were brown or not. They're still black people, right? Because black is a political term. It's not a real term. Because this here is black and I don't look like that. All right. So that is a political term. So they were brown. Yeah, I'm brown. I'm brown. So that's cool. So when you say that they were brown, that means they were me because I'm brown.
Yeah.
You understand? So don't try to fool me so that you think I won't know who I am and where I came from and what my people were doing. No, it wasn't black people, it was brown people. Yeah. Brown people are my people.
What do people actually think when, do you know what I mean, when they hear that, oh, yeah, the Moors were brown, they weren't black. So who do they think they were? The Arabs or something? Because even so, once again,
they're still us.
I'm not really not getting it.
So Nebuchadnezzar is the one who brought them there, many of them, but they were there. So listen, you've got to understand that they were already there, and now the issue that when they had done so many things, they worked now in conjunction, because it's easy, because they were all black people. Moors who came there, whether they were Muslim or not Muslim, they were still black. So they all worked together, and they were doing all these things, building libraries, building roads, building hospitals and clinics and bath houses and all kinds of things. And I ain't even going to go there too far, but let me tell you this, right? Let me tell you this, because this is a fact, and I ain't joking with it. They said that Seville, in particular, is one of the cleanest cities in the world because it had the most bathhouses, and that more than you would see anything else. The Moors and the Jews, as they called them, they kind of make, but it's basically what they meant, the blacks. Everybody carried their, let me put it in my vernacular, everybody carried their rag and soap.
Yeah.
Right? There are certain people, okay, and they will remain nameless, but you know who they are and so do they, that they had to be taught about such things because they're bathing once a month. The people in Seville, they weren't doing that. So you tell me which people they were that regularly everywhere they went, there was bathhouse everywhere for them to bath. You tell me who those people were, because the ones who we know who were bathing once a month, they don't look like me. Okay, they don't look like this.
That's what I said.
Okay, so you dispute that all you want, but you know that what I'm saying is true, right? They had to be taught that, and who were they taught by? Bath houses and all these places and proper bath the right way. You see, who were they taught those things by? And all the things that they were doing there, grease up your skin and all them. And who are the ones who like to grease up their skin? You tell me who those people were. Who were those people? Because you want me to believe that it wasn't us, right? Well, sorry, but I know. Yeah. They want us to believe that it wasn't us. There were some other people there, right? So this is what you got to understand. Now, they did so many things. They were settled there. They had done so much in Spain, and the evidence is still there until today.
Yeah.
So now, many hundreds of years, pass through time, and here comes the Catholic Church, Babylonian demonic religion, and they are the ones now who they don't want this. They don't want to accept this. So now these black people, they can't be so powerful, and they can't have so many things that look like it was them who did it. So they decided that they need to wipe this off. So you've got to understand, and the evidence is there to prove what I'm saying, and that's why I'm talking about it like this. We spoke some of this last week, and we said that now, Ferdinand and Isabella were ruling Spain, who were descendants of the Neanderthals, those hairy people who originally were part human and not. They're the descendants of them, and they said no, we can't. These black people, look, they're even building fantastic palaces and gardens and doing all sorts of things here. We're jealous, right? Because and until today, jealousy is still the same thing.
Yeah.
That is the reason why racism exists. It's to do with jealousy.
Yeah.
We don't like you. You look different, but yet you're still going and sitting in the sun, trying to look brown like me. And don't try to take me for a fool. Southern Spain, Seville is the hottest city in Europe. Let me tell you that. That's a fact. You think God is stupid? Why? He did it on purpose so that every single time those liars will open their mouth and say it's got nothing to do with black people, we can shut them down. Because everywhere where it's very hot, black people were there.
Yeah.
And God has done it on purpose to let you know that this is the fact. Portugal is one of the hottest places in Europe.
Yeah.
Why? Because black people were there.
Exactly.
You can't take that away no matter what you say or do. No matter what you say or do, you can't take it away.
And people that are there are just descendants of black people. But even it's like if people, what came out last year about England, about how the first settler in England was a black
person.
Yeah. So Cheddar Man. Cheddar Man. If that's the case in England, why can't it be true for the rest of the places in Spain and them places there? Crusty, cold England. But even anyway, them days it wasn't as cold. It was more tropical. So if people can accept that, it said in it 1 in 3 people or something is a descendant of him. So 1 in 3 of you English people that think you're white, you're actually black. You've got the black blood, and more time the other 2 who ain't. You're just from somewhere else. It's not here or whatever. From I don't know, Scandinavia and them places.
That's right. Remember this, that at that time, let me just read you something, because you've got to understand this is us. This is what this is.
It's still going to tell them. Yeah, look, they recently deleted one, and they actually just blocked it off that quick. They think they're funny. Same with the hacking, hacking my things. I know.
It's a joke, man. Because I asked them to move my things.
Exactly. And you didn't press it. So why did it go to recently deleted?
So let me just read you this, because I want to just tell you, at the time, our black people were in southern Spain and Portugal doing this. They were banking, They were in banking, medicine, law, and commerce,
Yeah.
with a far higher literacy rate than other Spanish communities. All right? That's what you got to understand. So, blacks were illiterate, they were in the jungle, all these type of things. Well, we already know that none of that is true, because we know even the first writing systems in the world ever came from, and all other written systems which come out from that come from black people. So let's not even. But there are many people who have not understood this, and they've believed the lie that they've been fed. And you see, the issue then is that for young people in particular, when they are fed that lie and they believe that lie, they feel like they don't know who they are.
Yeah.
They don't have identity, and it becomes an issue that, oh well, go back where you came from, because this is why we even started talking about this last week. Because I said I looked at this and thought about this because of this idiot who was telling me go back where you came from, and I'm looking thinking, okay, well, where do you think I came from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you must have come from Africa, from the jungle in Africa, or something like that. And and like there's nothing else in Africa but jungle, which there is. But also, not every person came that way, and that's why, like, I've gone and looked into this to see about where we came from. And no, our roots are in Judah.
Yeah.
Okay, and via Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's maybe not so for everybody, but I know that's where mine are. But I also know that there might be many more people even whose roots are like that, but they didn't know.
Yeah.
They didn't understand the connection, because even the title that I put there, many people, what do you mean? The first slaves in Jamaica were Negros from Spain. Yes, they were. It's the truth, because this is what I'm talking about. Ferdinand and Isabella became jealous. Even the Portuguese king also the same thing. We don't want these blacks now ruling us. We don't. So the whole classification of humans came via this whole thing. This whole issue of who's black and who's white and who's brown and mulatto and all of this rubbish, right? It came like that. That's how it came about. So now they decided that they need to expel them.
Yeah.
And we remember we talked about that part already. So they've said now, get out of the country. Never mind all the things that you've done. Never mind how good you've made the country. It's not your country.
Yeah.
Get out. And they used all their military might to push them out. Peace-loving people who had no intentions of military things, which is why they weren't prepared for that. That's what you got to understand, because if you didn't have that in mind, they would have just carried on going through Spain and up and all over. But that wasn't. They were settled, and they were making life and making it better than anywhere else in Europe, and that became the issue. And it's the foundations of Spain, and in fact, the foundation is all of Europe until today.
Yes, all of Europe.
But along came the dirty Catholic religion with its evil system, and we'll talk about that another time. But that's part of the issue. And some people they don't like that. This guy, he's talking so raw about, because it's what it is. It's what it is, right? The Spanish Inquisition was one of them, and there's no correlation between the two. Please, don't take me for a fool.
They're both white-skinned people doing their thing.
The Spanish Inquisition was one of the most evil things ever.
Yeah, but this is the thing, unless you choose, like I said before, unless you choose to, like, either study history, or you look into it yourself, they don't tell you this. No, they just keep it quiet. Yeah, they just keep it quiet. Even like in school, when you're young and you're in primary school and high school, even high school, unless you choose to do that as a subject, you don't really learn much more in depth about what's going on. You learn a bit about what do you even learn about? The white people. Yeah. You learn about Vikings. Battle of Hastings. What else? The Romans. Yeah. And what else? Victorians, maybe. Yeah. Like King Henry VIII and that. And then that's about it.
And that is mythology.
Yeah, that's mythology, which I don't really understand because it's not a myth. It's real. And Hercules was there, living his life, and he was a leopard.
So that's right. So now to just bring us up to speed for argument's sake for where we are, let me just give you this information because Christopher Columbus, the dirty liar, according to his word, discovered the Western. He didn't discover nothing on the
this
shore.
is what I was starting to say last week.
He didn't discover nothing. First of all, let me say,
There were
there were people already there. He, in his own documentation, has said that when he went there, he found what he calls Indian-looking people, which they're still us.
Yeah,
And he also found even what he calls because the Spanish ones gave them a different term. The ones who they classified as darker brown, they called them Negroes.
Yeah.
So he discovered Negroes already in the West Indies, who were living there happily and freely along with the Indians, the indigenous people.
Yeah.
But he decided to say that the indigenous were were Indian-looking ones and not the dark Negroes, because he had a plan. None of this is. That's why I told you.
Yeah.
Nothing is coincidence. He said all that because he planned. Because that's 1492. 1494, he returned again, and now when he returned again, he now has returned. He began now to take slaves from Seville, southern Spain. Now remember, I told you who they told: leave from southern Spain, or you will be enslaved.
Yeah.
So and you will be put into slavery, and you will be removed from the country if you don't convert to Catholicism and become a Catholic. Yeah.
Who's
that? What's he saying?
It's just
posted a link.
You have to tell us what it is.
Tell us what it is, Roy.
Yeah,
because we can't look.
Yeah.
This thing is not joking, is it?
Don't get it off again.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it has. They ain't playing games. They're not liking it.
So listen, let me read this to you. Spanish Inquisition began in intensity after royal decree in 1492. In Spain, in 1492, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, who were both rulers, it was I can't remember which was one. Was it Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, or it might have been the other way around. There were two kingdoms, but they were together, and those two were together. So that was Spain anyway. And then they made a decree on March the 31st saying that this was an expulsion decree stating that every Jew who did not convert must leave Spain by July the 31st. So in other words, they only had 3 months. And they had to leave the Iberian Peninsula. So that was Spain and Portugal, southern. They were told that they must leave. I don't know what he said there.
Oh, the little tune
Okay, my phone is there.
Oh yes, I will be listening to it. Yes, definitely. So they only had 3 months to leave, and look what they said. So about 200,000 managed to leave and go to various places, some of which we'll talk about anyway. And Columbus went off to go and look for where he's going to put the rest. Basically, it doesn't say that, but that was the case.
Yeah, he was looking for a next place to drop them off.
So he sailed just after the last Jewish deportees left Spain. Again, not coincidence.
But he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He sent him off.
And so the first black slaves arrived in Jamaica in 1494, and the Spanish ruled Jamaica from 1494 until 1655. Now, of course, we know that it wasn't only Jamaica, but I talk about Jamaica because that's where we come from. So that's where we're focusing on. But otherwise, we can talk about Hispaniola.
Yeah.
We can talk about Panama,
Mhm.
and so many other places which were, the Americas, as they called it. And, they intensified the so-called slave trade from that point on. Is this coincidence? Let me give you the dates for those who have not known this, and you tell me if you think it's just coincidence that slavery was abolished on August the 1st, 1834, and the Spanish Inquisition ended on July the 15th, 1834. Right? So all of that is just coincidence, is it? And the ones who began the slave trade in intensity were the Portuguese and the Spanish. Now you find that when they tell you the history, they try to fool people with the history by saying, oh, actually, it was the Portuguese, but they're not telling you that the Portuguese and the Spanish were in complicity. They were in agreement and they were working together.
Yeah.
All right, so it was them together, and it's because it was a contrived situation that they had put that they would expel the blacks from Spain and Portugal, and particularly those ones who had any kind of sense.
Juan.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Go ahead, read it.
Yeah, Juan Garrido, which was this man that was actually like working with Columbus as well. Yeah, that's what it says. And he went and took claim of Hispaniola, which is now Haiti. Yeah, and then ended up even finding his way to Seville. Yeah, this is not, you know what I mean? This is not a coincidence. Yeah,
Seville.
And then he took claim of Haiti by going and asking the Pope if he can take it, and the Pope said yes. Then he put his flag there, and boom, that was it. That's his now. Now the Spanish own Haiti.
And look at who they're asking, the Dutch Pope.
Yeah, the Catholics once again. So none of this is all connected, isn't it? Yeah, because if they're having to ask the Catholic Church for permission to take over some country, who's the one that's really giving the orders then?
And you see why they could justify it at first, initially, to begin it, was because it was the Inquisition.
Yeah.
That you can't remain a Jew. But basically, what they meant was you can't remain black.
Yeah.
And because they couldn't rub off the black skin, that's why they had to expel them. Come out of the country.
Yeah.
And first of all, you must convert and become a Catholic. That was what it was all about. And then they want to fool people so that you don't understand your identity, don't know where you came from or where some people came from, or even why did this happen. Because lots of people wonder, well, why did the transatlantic slave trade happen the way it did in that specific time period? But of course, that's what I've just read is just coincidence, isn't it? It's just a myth and a legend, like they tell you.
That adds some conspiracy.
Or a conspiracy
I don't
theory.
want to hear that anymore. It's a conspiracy. That has already been made up in the first place.
Yep.
Are you stupid or what?
So here's the thing now. Right. So now they've gone to Jamaica, boom, and they've brought these black people who are descendants of Judah, and they've brought them to Jamaica. And it's funny, it's interesting because I don't think I've ever told these things. My dad went to live in Belize, in Central America, before he died. He lived there for 20 odd years. And you know what his nickname was in Belize? You wouldn't believe it. Jew boy.
Jew boy.
Yeah, that was his nickname from the Belizeans, Jew boy. Belizeans, they just looked at him and they said he looked like a Jew. And my dad was very brown and he had curly hair, not tight knit, not that it matters, but he wasn't anyway. And they called him Jew boy. That was his nickname. Even people younger than him used to call him Jew boy. Interesting, isn't it?
They were obviously seeing the characteristics.
Interesting. But you see, irrespective of what we understand about any of that, that's where they came from. So the first ones that landed there as slaves, they were the non-compliant people of Judah, who they expelled from Spain and Portugal. And in fact, in the case of Jamaica in particular, the first slaves to land on the island of Jamaica by the Spanish came from the city of Seville, directly, which is why later I'm going and sitting there in my villa and enjoying myself, back where I came from. Yeah, for real. Nobody can tell me come out from there, go back where you came from. I tell them I'm there. This is where we came from. Right? This is where we began. Because those civilian, as in civilian, not civilian, blacks who were first enslaved and taken to Jamaica, they were born in Seville. They were not born in Africa. They were born in Seville. They were Europeans, which is why I've said that the first slaves who were in Jamaica were Spanish, because they were Spanish born. They were born in Seville, born black and born in Seville, and born free in Seville. And they were taken from their freedom, taken into Jamaica, and they were enslaved by dirty, lying Christopher Columbus, under the orders of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. So this is what you've got to understand. What you got to say, David?
Oh, because I saw this thing, and it says that these names started from black people in Europe. So in Poland, the last name Mora. In France, it's Moret, Morel, Morisal. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Italy, Moretti, Morelli, Morini, and Negra, Negrona, and Negrina.
Of course, all of them will be blacks.
And then in Germany, you've got Schwartz, Schwarte, and Schwartz. Then Holland, you've got Schwarzenegger, Burger.
Schwarzenberger.
Yeah, Schwarzenberger.
All black.
Schwarzer again, and then Schwartz again. And in Belgium, you've got the Moor, Mauer, Moor von Immersel. Yeah, and these names mean you have black roots.
That's right.
These names mean black, or the black. When some Moors converted to Christianity, they took on Christian names, and their last names became the black, like this Kenneth the Black, who was a Moor. And it says the Moors controlled various European countries, including Spain, like we said, which they controlled for over 700 years. Yeah, all the Eurocentric historians become silent, when Europeans of today put on blackface to represent how the Moors looked. And that's that festival.
They do that in southern Spain every year. And which people, stupid people, say that it's racist. No, it's not racist. It is a depiction of reality, because they are celebrating there's nothing racist about it. This is why these people who jump on the bandwagon, I'm speaking up for the rights of black people. Shut your mouth. You can't speak up for my rights and you're not even black. Shut up.
Just shut up.
Because you don't know what counts and what doesn't. People need to know, why have they've done, they do in those places, they do St. Nicholas with a black face. They do him with a black face because he was black, you see? It's got nothing to do with anything else than the truth. Shut up.
Maurice wrote a comment in there.
Says it's amazing, but when we went to Spain, my wife and I had a real love and connection with the place.
Oh yes.
I don't know how to explain it. It's more than the heat.
That's right. It's in your blood, man. This is what I'm saying, Roy. Because when I went to Spain, people had told me, and I'd met Spanish people. I had Spanish friends all my life in the UK. Even Spanish girlfriend at the bottom of my street, and we were like the closest of close. There was nothing. Some of my mum's best friends were Spanish. And it was like, these people, they're just us. And I was like, how come, at those times anyway, people are just people. Didn't really mean anything by then anyway. But as we've got older, we've become more analytical about, you know, the political dimensions of black, white, and all of the other things. People say, "Oh, you know, you're gonna feel racism from this." I never felt anything. I went to Spain and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It's just a serious love for that place. And I said, hang on. I said, this is like this is in my blood, you know. And now I know. And you know, some people may disagree. They want to argue with what I'm saying. That's fine. But you know, some of what we're saying is just how it is. You know, for a start, like I'd said to those who I mentioned before, my dad, I asked him and he said, no, we didn't come from Africa. He's adamant about that, at least on his side. Now, on my mum's side, because now this is what I want to talk about, hey, Mum, you should have some information about the Maroons as well. So now, on my mum's side now, I asked my mum, of course, the same thing. She said, yeah, we're Maroons. And she spoke about the Maroons from the African perspective. Now, just to give you a little bit of context, and Tamar, I think you've got some other information as well. The Maroons, when the Spanish took over the island of Jamaica and decided that it's a money-making factory and a dumping ground for the Moors and the Jews and so forth. Not that actually the Moors were not Jews, because they've tried to make you believe that the Moors were Muslim only. No, what they meant was that they were black.
Yeah.
So what they were really doing was expelling black people, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right?
So am I Maroon?
You might be.
You might be, yeah.
Might be. You might be, and that's what I'm coming to. So now with the Maroons now, 1655, when the British now took control of Jamaica, the original people who were there, as in the Spanish ones who came from Seville, those blacks, many of them escaped into the mountains and the hills, and they were the ones who were first called Maroons.
Yeah.
So they were the ones who began, you know, resisting.
No, not my I am.
All right, cool. That's it. They're the yeah. They're the ones who began resisting first of all against the British. Now, as the British then went now, because you see what happened. What's that? On his mother's side. Yeah, you see. The British now went after they'd already not the British, so the Spanish had for so many years brought their own slaves out from Seville and so on and so forth. All of them now were doing it. British, Portuguese, Spanish, the Dutch, they were all in it. So now they're going to Africa. And wasn't it already open? Yeah. Now they're going into Africa, and they're taking them from the so-called Gold Coast and all of these. But now the origination of even those people is still Portugal and Spain.
Yeah.
They knew they're going to. We've disseminated them there and there. We collect them from there and bring them as slaves still. So those ones now, when they brought them, especially like the ones that came from certain tribes in Ghana and so forth, they also, some of them escaped, and they also joined, and all of them were called Maroons. I'm just looking for something I want to say about that. Just a minute. Can't find it. Okay. Says that by the 16th, middle of the 16th century, most of the slaves in the Spanish Americas originated in Upper Guinea, typically arriving by the Cape Verde Islands. These were enslaved women, men, and children, and they were joined by others from Lower Guinea and West Central Africa, who were first collected in Sao Tome and then transported to the Americas. So you see, those islands, from the beginning, this was all a contrived situation. And obviously, people were still being born there, and they knew who they were collecting. You see, and this is where these people came from, and they were brought in as slaves from that time onwards. They came into Jamaica. I'm just trying. I don't want to read all of this stuff here. Yeah, so the slaves of the Spanish in Jamaica rebelled when the British took control in 1655, and many escaped to the hills and the mountains. They were known as Maroons. The strongest slaves brought over by the British were from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria and the Akan from Ghana. Some of them escaped and joined the Maroons and even became leaders amongst them. Akan or Coromantee culture became the dominant culture of Jamaica. And in Jamaica they call it Cromanti, but it means the same, Coromantee. And even the language that they speak or spoke was a different type of patois than the usual one. And my mum, she spoke that. And I always used to ask, well, of course I understood the words. Maybe if I even said some things to these two, they might not even get it, though she was their granny, but you know, they knew her not as long as I did. So, but she spoke that. There's some words which there's no English version anywhere close to it. So for all those who are, oh, Patois is not a language and I don't know what. All language is language because it's a verbal form of communication. Don't allow anybody to belittle how you speak.
Yeah.
You know, but for sure they had a language and also cultural dimension. You know, the Cromanti or Coromantee, as it was called from Ghana, became the dominant culture. And that's why then that most people have then looked and seen that the Maroons that's why then most people have seen that the Maroons, as they said, they've looked at them as mainly the Ghanaian people from the Afghan, but they weren't. They were the ones who were dominant. They became the leaders. But the Maroons was an amalgamation of black people. Some of them being the Spanish people from the lineage of Judah, who came from Seville. And who were already there before, but decided that they are rebelling against both the Spanish and the British. And we, as a people, as in me and my family, we came from both sides of that. Because on my mum's side, we came from the Maroons as well, and I think that's why we're so rude. Because we nobody can tell us anything. We're not listening. You know, and well, my daughters are here. Try them, and you will see for yourself. So, go on, Kmart. It's your turn.
Right. Well, to be fair, you was taking a lot of my my teens there, but it's all right.
Just elaborate some more. Go ahead. Get on with it.
I'll have to skirt around a bit, but like
You
what
should have
Dad
stopped me.
said, because I just thought I'd just let him take the lead in it. It's all right. But anyway, as Dad said, yeah, like the Maroon community came from obviously a group of formerly enslaved.
One scholarly source says the Jews were first called Negroes in Spain and Portugal.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that's what we're saying.
Yeah. So
They're the ones who came up with that term
yeah, they did. This is what I mean.
to suit their own purposes.
So these are enslaved Africans, as they say they are.
And which
They're-
they
and
weren't.
their descendants. They say they're descendants, but obviously we know who their descendants are. So we just went through all of that in our last week. And they said that they gained their freedom because obviously they fled from the enslavement, And like Dad says, they went into the remote mountain areas and dense, overgrown tropical terrains and things like that.
Mm.
And it says many of the groups are found now, this is now today, where they're still found, the descendants, Caribbean and throughout the Americas.
Mm.
Yeah, so that means Brazil, Jamaica, Haiti, Suriname, Cuba, Puerto Rico,
Dominican Republic.
Yeah, Dominican Republic, Guyana, Panama, Colombia, Mexico,
Suriname.
yeah, southern United States, primarily Florida and the Carolinas.
Mm-hmm.
Hear that? Yeah, and they were well known. These are all well known places where the Maroons then went off to. Yeah, so that's why you see a lot of black people in them areas, or dark skinned people. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it says the word maroon actually was first recorded in England in English, of course, 1666. So this is what you said about
1655 is when they began resisting, and they have to have a name for everything.
Of course they do. Yeah, and it comes from the French word marron, which translates to runaway black slave.
That's right.
Yeah, and it actually came from the Spanish, which is cimarron, which means wild runaway slave.
Wild runaway slave.
Beast who cannot be tamed.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's what they're calling us.
Yeah.
There's always a negative connotation behind it,
Yeah.
and a negative word. So they're calling us wild beasts who cannot be tamed.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
And
Because hold on 1 minute.
Yeah, go on.
When it comes to you and your slavery mentality, I am a wild beast who cannot be tamed.
And that's fine.
Learn that.
You've said
That's
it.
fine, because yes, I
Make sure
agree.
you're aware.
Yeah.
Right? As long as you understand that, that's fine with me. When it comes to your slavery mentality, I am a wild beast who cannot be tamed.
You're right.
That's right.
So, yes,
You're correct. Let me just say this as well, while I'm saying, hold your thought, because I was vexed about this yesterday like nothing else. My granddaughter went back to school with this foolish coronavirus rubbish time. She's already wearing a mask. She's gone with a nice new pair of black boots, and she's wearing trousers to school, right? So there's a particular teacher there who doesn't like my granddaughter. She's a racist pig. I'm not even going to spice or mince my words. That's what she is, right? She is a racist pig. She doesn't like my granddaughter. So now she's seen her come with a nice new pair of boots, nice shiny, nice boot, and a nice trousers. The child's trousers hitch up a little bit, right? So you imagine, say, you get up and your trousers hitch up, right? It's quite normal. So now the boots were showing because the trousers had hitch up.
Yeah, hitched up a bit.
So she's gone and now told her, you're not allowed to show your boots in school, and you must make sure that your trousers are long enough to cover your boots. And if you do it again, we will take off the boots and give you shoes to wear. Imagine, right? This is these nasty people that racism inside their spirit can't come out. So I said, good, because I'm waiting for them to try it. In this corona time, I'm waiting. Every news outlet in the world will hear about it. How they're trying to do. Because I already told her, and she'll be hearing. She'll go and tell them if necessary. She will not be wearing any shoes from the school. That other people have been wearing, and simply because they don't want to see the child looking smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Simply because they are nasty, racist, evil people. But they have to know that when it comes down to it, we know who we are, and that's why we can't be tamed. We cannot be tamed. We cannot be tamed by your racist ideologies and philosophies. It won't work. Mm-hmm.
Right, let's say, yeah. Right,
Who said that? Marissa. Yeah, it is nonsense.
Right, so Trevor said here, in the book, Nature Knows No Color Lines, we find out that Europe, the name of an African deity, sees ruled by black people, hence the name the Dark Ages.
That's
if you
right.
look at the coat of arms of many major European royal houses, they have blacks on their coat of
They
arms.
do,
Yeah.
because that's how it started.
Mhm.
Yes.
finally Oliver Cromwell is reputed to have rid the UK of the Jacobites, a name meaning the children of Jacob.
The children of Jacob.
James being one.
And they did,
Yeah.
that's right. You're right, Trevor. 100%. And the Jacobites did a lot of building and architectural things around England. Then let's say they did a lot, and they knew that these are black people. They said, no, we can't have this. We can't have this.
But I've always said that about uniform. It never affects the learning. I don't see how it can.
Of course it can't.
No, it's a form of control.
Yeah.
It's a form of control, right? And so,
if it was like, okay, why is school uniform not free?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, tell me that one. Yeah, because they want people to be able to. They say it's about, you know, what they used to tell me in school. Oh, it's not. It's because we don't want the less fortunate children to be seen that their clothes are not looking good. Please shut up.
Afford the uniform.
What about their uniform when it's looking crusty and old?
And dirty and smelly.
Yeah, and everyone else's is fresh. We still know who they are.
Hasn't been washed properly and all these things.
We still know who they are. So stop talking rubbish.
But that teacher, she just wants to try to put that child into a certain place when it's not working. When it comes to racism, we are a wild beast which cannot be tamed.
Yeah, and that's the truth.
Go ahead, Flavor.
Then I can't afford that uniform. Exactly. Exactly. Lots of people can't. That's the thing. Costs hundreds. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
It's a form of control. That's all.
Yeah. Right. So it says here, it's actually important to note that most Africans do not even refer to themselves as Maroons because they usually opted for a more powerful name, names such as I can't even pronounce this.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it before from my mum.
Yeah,
Yankee Pong Pikiboo.
Yeah, Nyanki Pong Pikiboo. And that means children of the Almighty.
Yeah, because the Akan, their god, they call their god. Well, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it exactly correct, but you know, whether it's Nyanki Pong or Nyanki Pong, that's what their god is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it from my mum.
Yeah, so they
Nyanki Pong Pikiboo.
Yeah, so they weren't interested, obviously, in calling themselves no wild beasts and all them things there.
Exactly.
And then, as Dad said as well, because now, remember, like you said, according to legend, is what it says.
Because by the way, this is where the term picnic comes from. Because pikiboo is what they were saying, and the English people heard picnic.
Yeah.
It's the English people who have given picnic into patois, but the original is pikiboo.
Yeah.
They weren't, and then they say, oh no, they were saying pickaninny. No, they weren't.
Yeah.
They were not saying no pickaninny. They were saying pikiboo.
Yeah.
Right?
So like Dad said, they always have to.
No, I'm tired of this. You know, every little thing.
Every little thing. Oh no, we weren't saying that. We weren't doing it. It weren't us. Who was it then?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why everything is according to, because this is about now the African origins of the people, yeah, which I read. My name's called That's not. Anyway, so as it says, according to legend, but we know it ain't no legend because this is what Dad was talking about before with the Coromantee or the Coromantee. Yeah. So it's not no legend then, is it? Yeah. And it says the Coromantee name continues in the Maroon communities still till now because it's got traditional, like, reasons, values. It memorializes and pays tribute to the West African coast where they came from, and it was traversed by the newly enslaved Africans en route to the ship that would transport them to the west, which obviously the West Indies and all of that. And they tried to say that they're trying to say there was something in 1717. There was something about the Coromantee rebelled against the Ashanti tribe But I couldn't really find much more about that, so I'm not too sure on that. They could just be putting their own
Their own
flavor. Yeah, they could just do their own.
No, there was.
There was,
There
okay.
was. Because that's where the problem was that some of the people, unfortunately, because again, even though you might now be talking about the same people of the same color, you're not talking about the same people of the same understanding religiously.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, if you like, for want of a better term, believers and pagans. Let's put it that way. So some of these people who were the same color as us, they were pagans.
Yeah.
So they sold the believers. And when we talk about the believers, we know the original believers were of the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
We're talking about those. And they sold them to the white man. So I think I had mentioned the story of one of them where they told them to come and take shelter in the palace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then basically they sold them all out into slavery. So, and we know that this is happening, in various pockets. The kingdom of Dahomey, which is now Benin, at that time the warriors were women. The king's guard, they were women, and they were savage warriors. They were serious. That's where Black Panther all comes from. All right, and let me not even get too far into that right now, because yes, I did watch the movie, but I didn't. What's the word I'm looking for? I didn't glorify that movie.
Yeah.
All right, and let me say this anyway, because I'm a big mouth, so I'm just saying what I'm saying. I'm not going to pretend for 1 second that there wasn't a lot of loaded demonic symbolism within that film, and it was there deliberately. Right? Now, those people who looked at that movie and said, this has helped me to identify myself and to identify my blackness and all of that. Let me just straighten some things up for you about that. All right? Because it's all very good and well, but if you want to look for identity, look in the right place and look at the right things for identity. So you're looking at the kingdom of Dahomey. I don't know what you're saying.
Kind of. What Hamites sold Shemites, the heathen souls, the people of including the Edomites. Benin was located next to the Judah on the map that goes back in the world.
But that's really what I've said. Because if you classify the Shemites as the people of Judah and the Hamites are not, that's why I said they may have carried the same color, but they're not the same people.
Yeah.
So that's really, I'm basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And yes, we know. So what I'm saying, when you look at that movie, and people have glorified it, and they're still glorifying it even more now because this guy has just died, and he was a good man and ready, and all of this. I don't want to get into anything about him right now. All right, but what I'm saying about the movie, you're looking at these female warriors. Yes, they existed. They were the king's guard for the kingdom of Dahomey, and they were evil.
Yeah.
Their intentions were evil, their hearts were evil, the king was evil, and all his orders to walk for them were evil. And they were capturing their own color, at least by color, they're the same. And even if we want to go deeper and say, well, no, they're different because they're Hamites and Shemites, well, they were brothers, so they were capturing their own family anyway. Whichever way you look at it, the facts remain the same. Shem and Ham were brothers.
Yeah.
All right. So if we go even to that depth, that is like my two daughters here, and she decides, oh, I'm brown and she's darker, so she's going to sell her into slavery. They are brothers. They're sisters.
Yeah.
You understand?
Family.
They're family. So you don't do that rubbish. But that was what was going on. So now you're looking at that. And even in the movie itself, it showed that.
Yeah,
It showed
that's why he
the
showed
family
that's
dynamics
the dad
negatively.
left him.
The father did it,
Mhm.
and then now the two sons are doing the same rubbish again.
Fighting again.
Right? You understand? So it's showing you that there's a generational thing in this,
Yeah.
and even all that is in that movie. Then you've got ancestral worship in there. You've got ancestral communication, communicating with the dead. All of these things, and you're glorifying that. No, don't even start me off on that. Don't even go there, because that's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
No.
I get what you're saying.
What's Roy saying?
But the good thing Black Panther, it gave people permission to think black or to even think nothing but positive.
Oh yes, I'm not denying any of that, Roy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from the point of view of those people who don't get it like we do, and who then glorify it and everything that was in it. Absolutely, not everything about it was, and that's my issue.
Good.
It was. I watched the
It was a good
movie,
film,
and I was happy to watch it. I was happy to see the way that the movie was made was fantastic. I was happy to see black women empowered in that position, but at the same time, I am one who believes in always telling the truth as much as possible, from top to the bottom. Put it all in there, you know. So, because there are a lot of sheep who won't go and look.
Yeah, that's the thing, and then that's,
you know,
that's it, that's
and they'll think,
history.
oh, fantastic, these women were powerful, they were great, they were fantastic women. No, they weren't. They were evil. So let's have it right. You know. Sorry, Damon, but you know,
It's all right.
it just had to be said.
Let's see what I'm still right. Okay.
You know me is a long meter, so.
It says here that there are divergent accounts as to the earliest Maroons.
Of course.
Yeah, with some even indicating that the first Maroon was a solitary African who escaped from the first slave ship to dock in the Americas in 1502. That was 10 years after Columbus's arrival, yeah. But you know what I'm saying? 10 years after Columbus's arrival, how could that be the first Maroon?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're trying to say that in the 8 years that he started bringing slaves, none of them could
have escaped
until then.
Anywhere. That's lies. We know that that's the first. That's the first recognized. Yeah.
Because again, they want to make you look weak, like you couldn't do it. You see, the unfortunate thing about this, that a lot of it happened because of compromise and complicity. And had there not been compromise and complicity, it wouldn't have been like that. They were like, oh yes, okay, and just following like a lamb to the slaughter. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have never been like that.
Of course.
And hence the reason why the Spanish used the term cimarron, saying that we are wild animals who cannot be tamed. Because you see, like even in the movie Roots, they've chopped off part of Kunta Kinte's foot. Me, you'd have to chop off the foot, the ankle, the hand. Listen, don't leave me with nothing, because anything you leave me with, I'm killing you with it. Right? I'm killing you with it. You must. Me.
Every night I'd be working out to walk. Yeah, every night that would be me.
That's right, Trevor. The first ship was called the Good Ship Jesus. They think they're clever.
Yeah. So then it says which this doesn't, because if that's the case, and you know, remember the Maroons didn't start escaping until 10 years after Columbus first came there. Listen to this now.
So because he came there and then he left, so what was they doing all that time?
Staying there and doing as they told.
Exactly.
With the whip.
Listen to this now. This says the Maroons strategically teamed up with indigenous people, and survived through sheer will and have maintained a presence in the Western Hemisphere, which is all them countries what I was already telling you about before. So that already cancels out what they're talking about with oh, they did nothing for 10 years. If they strategically teamed up with indigenous people, which bear in mind that already shows you that there was people there. Yeah. And I'm sure that means that the indigenous people that were there would have, if they were helping them, they must not have been looking white. They must have been black.
But it's, you know what? It's only them people, I put it this way again, who don't look like me,
who can
who
do that.
think that they've got strategy.
Yeah.
Now what they don't have strategy. Theirs is
It's like,
let me use my mum's word. Theirs is generalship.
yeah, it's true. Exactly.
Those who understand, they understand.
Yeah,
It's not strategy, it's generalship.
Yeah, they're crooks. Put a more English
I couldn't even find an English term for it. A generalship in them.
Yeah, so for me, what I personally take from this is that if they strategically teamed up with the indigenous people, and now suddenly a big revolt started happening in 1512, which is what it says, when a steady stream of slaves began to, run away. That means
Like they would have never wanted to run away before.
this is what I mean. What does that mean? That means that there was a plan. Quite
And
some of them went.
by then it got bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Some
Till
of them
now it was
went
a problem.
yeah, and they made their own little thing, and then they must be when Columbus is doing his own thing, they're slyly coming back or sending people to go and tell, yo, there's something
There's something going on.
Go through
Find your way out.
Yeah. And so then
And it
people
became an
slowly,
issue.
boom, 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 found their way out. It's quite obvious. Yeah.
It became an issue. But this is what they don't want you to understand.
They faced with monumentally hostile conditions, which is obviously slavery. They tactically established armed settlements because they were in constant danger of being recaptured or killed by the European tyrants. Moreover, there was always a perpetual battle to physically to sustain themselves because of obviously all of the produce and that was getting shipped off, and they were on the smaller islands of the Caribbeans and all of that.
That's right. That's right. And you see the difference. Why then, if you like, there were two factions to the Maroon. The first Maroons, the ones who the Spanish are the ones who gave it the name anyway, Cimarron, the wild animal ones. Those ones, you know why they called them that? Because those first ones, they were not warriors. They were not soldiers. They were intellectual. Remember, I told you these were the guys who were putting in place banking systems and medical systems and places of education and learning. So that was the roots of those people, the first ones who landed in Jamaica in 1494, when Columbus brought them there from the city of Seville in Spain. Those first ones, they were of the tribe of Judah, and they were they were the original intellectuals. Now, when the ones came now who came from Auntie, they were warriors, which is why they automatically became the leaders of the uprising, because it was in their blood automatically to fight, on, even if you like, on a physical basis, whereas the other ones were on a more intellectual basis. Now, this is why they were continuously wanting to divide the groups, and I'm still coming back to that. I'm going to stay on it and keep on it, because this is what all the things that we ever talk about, this is why we're doing it, because we're trying to get black people in particular to come together and understand who they are and understand how to walk together. And why do I do that before I talk to white people? Does it mean that I'm racist? No, it doesn't. But what it means is that because you cannot deny who you are, all right, and what you are. So it's all good. No, don't talk like that. Just talk about everybody together. No, because we're not together, right? We are not together, which is why we have to do this, so that we will get people to a point where they will understand how to function together and how to function at the level that God had intended for them to function at. And this is what has always been the case, that they wanted to break that down. So they wanted to divide them so that the intellectuals and the warriors could not come together to work together. And that's why they couldn't break the Maroons. They couldn't defeat them, because you were having intellectuals and you were having warriors coming together. And that's why they're savages, they're this, they're that.
They had their strategy, and they had the warriors to fill out.
You see, and even until today, You know, and they have a certain spiritual content within themselves.
Yeah.
Even until just the other day, I watched something and I laughed. They went to a maroon town in Jamaica. The police went there, right, to go and tell people about coronavirus. The policeman had to leave fast, right? You look it up on Google and you'll probably find. I don't know if it's on YouTube. The policeman had to leave. He had to leave because they told him, said, "Yeah, this isn't Jamaica, right? You've come now where the maroons are. This is not Jamaica, so you better go where you're going. Don't come in here with your chat about corona and whatever." He had to leave. They had to leave because they're militant. They're not joking. So what's yeah. It's always been the case. They knew that they had to divide and conquer, and they're jealous
Yeah,
in more ways than one.
that everybody would turn out to be like the same black.
But that's not happening. Eventually, it's happening. But the thing is, it's just because they're black people who are not dark skinned.
There
There
will always be different shades.
Yeah,
You know, and also, who cares?
exactly.
What
What
does it matter?
Them, only them.
Yeah, only them, and that's the truth, mostly. Yeah, only them.
I don't know, but I feel like it's
It's deliberate.
yes.
They're trying to.
It's deliberate. Because it's trying to say, if I can hear you, you should hear me.
But you can from that, you know.
Wait, let me start getting louder. Really want to get louder. I've got a little bit more.
Yeah, go on. Go on.
Because there's it, obviously, I just spoke about how on the smaller islands they found it a bit harder because, you know, there wasn't a lot of food and the people were shipping it on. Yeah, on the larger islands, however, the Maroons were able to hunt, grow crops, and thrive. And so, as increasing numbers escaped and joined their ranks, they took their warfare to new heights. And so, this is why they then started to get called savages. They started burning and raiding the plantations and poisoning their slavers. Yeah,
Putting them under miners.
they struck fear into the hearts of the white enslavers, causing the British and the US governments to pass dozens of acts against them and spend millions of pounds and dollars to conquer them. Yeah, this was often for nothing as well, because the Maroons were led by fearless warriors, as Dad just said, who would stop at nothing to throw off the slavery and that. They didn't want it, and they weren't stopping. Like Dad said, they weren't interested. Yeah, so dozens of wars and revolts are reflected in the historical record. It says the first one was in 1519. And this is what I'm talking about once again when I'm saying that they had a plan. Because if the first one was in 1519, we just spoke, first slave ever to go was in
1502.
And then there was a timeline that began where lots of them started leaving in 1512. Well, 1512, and what was that? 1519. What, a couple of years. What was going on? They were planning things. This was all a plan. Yeah, they said, let's do this, let's do that. Get the people out first. They got people, then they got more people out. Yeah, I'm telling you, when it was 1512, when it was like coming out, they must have already decided what they were doing when it came to the wars. By that point, they said we need more people. Get them out. Yeah, once we've got them out, the carnage is beginning, and it did. Yeah, they weren't joking. It says that they were led by Enrique against the Spanish in Hispaniola. Yes, I'm guessing that must have been one of the first ones, and that's in Haiti. Yeah. And he was saying in Brazil about how they have settlements known as Quilombos. It's called Quilombos. Can't tell these words. Quilombos.
Yeah.
Yeah. The most famous of
Quilombos.
Quilombos. The most famous of such settlements was Quilombo dos Palmeiras in the northeastern part of Brazil. It functioned successfully as an independent republic of the Maroons in the 17th century, following an African pattern of social organization. At its apex, it was the home and refuge of some 20,000 men and women and children who had managed to escape plantation life. Isn't that interesting? Because everybody in Brazil is, they're Latin. They're not black. And all these things, even when they're brown, they're not black, they're Latin. And all these things. Well, what about that?
Even
What
the
about them
black ones.
20,000?
They're calling themselves Afro-Latina.
Afro-Latina, yeah, so then they're not
even
black
is that?
once again. Oh no, you're just dark-skinned Latina. Well, shut up! Yes! just shut up!
Yeah,
And stop talking rubbish.
of course.
Yeah?
Really.
So what are you on about Latin? How are you Latin? What are you talking about? Yeah, that don't even make no sense, doesn't it? Where is Latin? So show me. Show me the country called Latin.
There's
and
no
then I'll
such.
accept that you're Latina or Latino. But until then, I don't want to hear it, man.
Well, that's
It's
like,
as simple as that.
then it's another thing that you're mixed race or
Yeah, mulatto.
Latino.
Yeah, Latino. It's the same thing. You just talking
It's
out
Europe.
your Yeah, you know what I was gonna
Looking
say.
out of your armpit.
Yeah, exactly. You're just talking out your armpit, man. And I'm not here
for it.
all of these. This is only a small piece of information that I'm giving. I'm not even giving lots and lots of information. But already, can you see, it starts to break down the facts, as you were, and the ideology that we have been fed. That people in Latin, because I don't know if maybe what do they think they are? This is what I'm trying to.
I don't know,
Because
but I know that they don't realize they're
realize
black.
that they're black. That's one thing I definitely know. And so if they don't realize that they're black, then what have they done? They don't know what they are.
Someone's chatting about Cardi B's not black.
Oh yeah.
So what is she orange then?
That's what I mean.
But it's
What is
Trinidadian and Dominican. They're both black, so that makes her black.
She's Latina.
Yeah, she's Latina. No, she's not. What? Because she speaks Spanish. Those countries, Dominica,
No, we're Spanish.
we're Spanish. We
should
speak Spanish. Yeah,
Don't worry, we'll be learning it.
Yeah, the same like
We'll be
in
learning it.
Portugal and all them. But what? It's only because they speak Spanish that they then become a Latin or Latina. It doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry. Sorry to burst your bubble. Yeah. But it doesn't mean anything. Yeah, because and even till now, say if somebody is born in like these people that born in Spain, they're still the ones that don't want to accept the truth, still will not call them Spanish. Or Latina, Latin. So if that's the case, then these people out in Brazil and all them, you ain't no Spanish or Latino or nothing. You're just African, aren't you? You're not. Remember, you're not Spanish, and this is what I mean. It's all foolish then, because quite obviously, yes, they are. Cuban and Dominican, and yes, they are those things, but they are also black. Yeah. That doesn't take away the blackness just because you then become Latino or something else. And I seen one girl on Instagram. I had to cuss her off, not even gonna lie, because she put up some little foolish video about, there's a reason why a lot of black men prefer to be with the Latina women instead of the black women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is what she said, because they don't want a pit bull, and black men, want to be treated nicely, and they're getting a lot of what's she saying? A lot of attitude from the black women. This girl, right? If you saw her, she's black. She was a little bit lighter than me. Yeah, and she had curly hair and black features. So what does she think she is? What does she think?
Latin is code for Roman because they spoke that language.
Exactly.
We with the skin come from the continent, they want to separate us, so they invented layers.
Yeah,
mixed race and
exactly,
mulatto,
Trevor,
which is what
Of
exactly.
course,
saying.
that's it. That's
Destroyed
it.
labels that don't mean anything.
Exactly, they don't mean anything. Thank you, Trevor, because that's exactly what I was getting at. Yeah, it's just means the language that they speak.
Yeah,
It does not mean that that is your race. Latin ain't no race.
it's not a race.
And this is why I keep saying, show me the country called Latin, and then I will shut up. But until then,
There's no such thing.
exactly.
It's pure
So
foolery.
I'm never shutting up then. Because it's the truth, yeah. What are you talking about, Latin? You know. Yeah, what are you talking about, Latin? Yeah, there ain't no Latin place. I'm sorry, man. That's the truth, and that's it. You are black as well, yeah, and you come from probably the same descendants that we did, yeah. Seville or wherever else, the Maroons, the Moors. That's where you're coming from, and that's why you're in Cuba and them places there, and you're black or brown. Simple, yeah, and that's all there is to it.
That is it.
Hello, Jordan. Jordan, your cousin.
Oh, he's
He's
coming
there.
with things. Because I wasn't on there from the rocks.
Yeah, I've just seen on there.
Yeah, man. I'm done talking now. I said enough. You people get my point. Yeah.
I mean, if you don't, it's because you don't want to.
But you see, once again, it comes back to the same thing that we have been saying, you know, over the weeks, months, or whatever it's been now. It's been a while anyway.
Yeah.
That we're not doing this because of racism per se. I mean, we began doing this because of the lockdown anyway.
Basically, yeah.
And of course, you know, I don't know what that says there. Black Lives Matter.
Hello, Uncle.
Oh, right. Black Lives Matter has kind of fueled the conversation, but it's not exactly about that, because this is not really, it's bigger than that. This is about identity, and people have got to understand where they fit in the world. You know, that's the major thing about this, is to understand where you fit in the world.
Yeah.
And that's why we speak the way we do. That's why we say the thing, because people struggle.
Yeah.
And then when you even get situations like I mentioned before about my granddaughter, the child will be confused. Why are they even doing this to me?
Yeah.
So we've got to give her some foundation of understanding. Well, it's because actually they're jealous.
Yeah.
You know, there's something inside them. There's a fearfulness, and there's also, you know, if you like, for us to understand it better, something demonic about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Why they would behave like that, and we need to explain that, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. You've got a brand new pair of boots, a nice looking pair of boots, nice smart trousers, and it's still not good enough.
Yeah. Rubbish.
You know, she looks smart and clean and neat and tidy. It's still not good enough. You know, and yet you'll find that for people going through life, you know, they come up against the same issue time after time after time.
Yeah.
The way you look is an issue. The way you dress is an issue. The way you speak is an issue. The accent you have is an issue. Your gesticulations are an issue. You know, so many of these things.
Yeah. That grows out of your head.
You see?
It's a problem.
And all of this, well, why? Because they're trying to tell you, look, you're different. Right? You're different. You're different. And they're trying to put it with a negative terminology. You know, it's like one of the words that I have to correct with Africans often, many Africans. When they tell someone, thank you very much for what you've done for me, and then they say, I will revenge one day. Now, actually, they don't mean revenge. They mean I will reciprocate one day. But they use the word revenge thinking that it means I will give you back what you've given to me, as in, but revenge is a negative word. So the problem then is that they've not seen the difference. Because when they say, no, I'll revenge you, thank you, you gave me a lovely meal, I'll revenge. But they don't mean I'll revenge, they mean I'll reciprocate. So you see, the use of words and the understanding of words matters, because then
Yes.
what happens is we are given all these negative labels and negative connotations which people take,
Yeah, they
you see,
internalize.
and they internalize them, they swallow them and label themselves with it. Instead of saying, hang on a minute, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
I do have an identity, but you've got it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather go and discover my identity for myself.
Yeah.
So hence again, we're here speaking of identity. And maybe many white people won't be interested in this subject. I don't even care. Right? I don't even care, because that doesn't matter. Because the bottom line to it all is plain and simple as this. When you're not interested in what interests me, you're not interested in me.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's
Simple as that.
the truth.
Let's not pretend.
And that's why I said anybody who's white and they're like what Dad just said, they're not interested, they don't want to know about this knowledge or the truth or what. You want to keep your superiority complex.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what your issue is. But that's fine. And they want to, they're scared of us, obviously, like I said, they're scared of us rising up and becoming,
They don't want us to unite.
yeah, they don't want us to unite, because if we do, then we become too strong and too powerful. And then what will happen is, instead of them being on TV everywhere and being in every Congress office and everybody else, it would be us.
And that's what
And they don't want that.
down all this time.
Yeah, that's what they're happy to squash them down. And then they try to, appease us with dirty ass Obama. Am I interested in him?
No.
Don't even get me started on that.
Not interested in
That's
my
someone
kind.
else. Yeah.
Me and Mike
people
can stay over there where they are.
Yeah,
Yes, Michael.
yeah,
Yeah, what
That's something
Trevor
else.
said there at the recent poll showed
yeah,
that Christian Caucasians are more racist than the secular ones.
yeah.
Yes, it's true. And that is the issue, because it's status quo.
Yeah.
We're okay. So what are you talking about?
Mm.
Or if anybody's to speak, we will speak on your behalf. No, shut your mouth
Yeah.
and shut it
Yeah.
properly. Don't speak on my behalf. I'll speak for myself. Because when I speak for myself, I'll say what I really need to say and not what you want me to say.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Stop trying to speak for us. And I've heard that before as well, what Trevor said about how the white Christians are the most racist. And I saw somebody put on Facebook, I wonder what heaven they think they're getting into.
Yeah.
And it's true.
It's true.
What heaven are you getting into? Because you don't think God is
Yeah.
yeah, when you get to them, just watch this for me. Like,
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because this is still all about identity. But you see, when you make it about color
yeah,
and not about origination,
yes,
because we are talking of origination,
yeah,
right? Just like they do, but they do it on a negative basis. Remember, where do you come from? Because when they say that, they mean it negatively. But when I say it, I can tell you where I come from.
yeah.
I'm not saying it from a negative connotation. I'm saying it from a celebration point of view and an understanding of identity in the way that it should be. But now, when they're asking you that question, they're asking that from a negative connotation. Where do you come from? Because you look different. And realizing that maybe you're the one who's not from the same place as me, but I'm from there.
Exactly.
Right? So
Exactly.
this is the whole thing of it. And it's because there is an issue of belonging that is an issue to them.
Yeah.
It is not an issue to us, but it's an issue to them.
Like Trevor's comment said, when they discovered that there was less of people looking like them, they felt threatened.
So we've been everywhere,
Yeah.
and that's why we're all right. We're comfortable everywhere because we've been everywhere. That's the difference. We've been everywhere. It's in our blood. Hi, Gladys.
Hi, Gladys.
We've been everywhere. It's in our blood, so we're comfortable. You can put us anywhere in the world, and we're cool because we've been there, right? That's the difference.
Even the Eskimos are not.
Of course,
They're not white people.
because that was now the next. Oh, in all these cold places, that's the white man's territory. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because
And those black people are designed for them.
Eskimos are brown and they've got big flare-tailed noses.
Yes.
So that puts away the myth that the reason why your nose is broad is because you have to stay in the heat, and the reason why your nose is narrow is so that because of the cold. But Eskimos have got broad flare-tailed nose.
So what now?
So what about them? And they can withstand cold more than anybody else. So, you know,
Yeah.
and we can go on, even the Inuits and so forth,
Yeah.
right up there in Canada, and say proper cold,
Exactly.
and they're brown, right? But all of a sudden, anyway, because of course, when you see brown, you're telling me it's not black. But black is a political term, because I ain't black either,
Exactly.
right?
We're
That
all
black-
all shades of brown.
Black is not my identity, and it's not my origination.
It's what you make us put on.
Right? It's what you asked for on your form, on your paperwork, to try to identify where do you come from. And that doesn't identify where we come
Then
from.
what? Black British.
Yeah, what kind of black?
Black this, black mix. Then with the mix, you must then
Which kind of
which kind of mix. And then they try to tell me, because my type of mix ain't even on the.
Well, of course it won't.
No, so
It
I
might
have
be on
to
there.
mix other.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and then I must then
and
specify
you got
what
to
it
specify.
is.
No, you don't have to
No,
specify.
I always put other purposely just to mess with them.
I just mix other.
Where do you come from? I didn't come from a cave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Right?
Trevor.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it.
we have never lived in
Yeah,
cave.
exactly.
You know, if they want to know where did you come from, I didn't come from a cave.
No, I didn't.
Right?
Yeah.
Because these are all the things you see, and at least thank God, you know, for a few weeks we brought some kind of consistency
Yeah.
about identity, and I you know, I pray that those who watch it and see, even if they only watch clips and snips, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
They'll hear something within the midst of that.
Yeah.
I know anyway. These are pretty long.
Yeah.
And for some people, the concentration span is not there to stay with it, but maybe they come back with watch bits and whatever. It's okay.
However you want to watch it.
We've made them long because that's how we want to talk.
Yeah, it's
We, you know,
easier for us to, you know, speak like this. I think if it was more
Get it all
chopped
out.
up, we'd be
Forget
thinking, yeah, we'd be thinking too much
Mm.
about what we need to.
Or what
Do you
we've
know what I
already
mean?
said and not going back over it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for a lot of people, it's
And we don't want
them.
this one. We don't want it to be scripted.
No, yeah,
You
we
see?
don't want it to be no scripted thing. Some of them, obviously, we do have more notes, and that's when it's a bit more like
Yeah, we've got, you know,
straight to the point and stuff. But when it's not like about statistics and then
Yeah.
we just want to speak and then, you know, let some people hear what we're saying.
Mhm.
And I think as well, obviously, I know sometimes we do hash over things again, but I think it's
We
important
need to.
because sometimes people might not have got it the first time, or they might not have even heard it from the first time because they didn't watch it or something like that. And
Or I was
if it
talking too
connects.
fast.
yeah, exactly.
Because I do that.
Exactly, and it all connects to each other. It all
Yeah.
connects. So we're not just bringing something from another live out of nowhere. Like, you know, I'm not just randomly
They all
coming
kind
in.
of follow on and connect.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. To be honest, they do all kind of have a connection. So, you know, we ain't gonna stop doing it, really.
No, and we're not going to stop talking because we talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody here talks. So, you know, it's just like that. And if Zach I was here, it would be just the same.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be all like 2.5 hours.
And Darren, if we bring Darren and Zach we've got a bigger problem.
Yeah, it's gonna be even
Because
longer.
those two, they speak like their grandfather.
Yeah.
So they've got big long pauses in between.
Wow. Yeah, because it's always wow. You know.
So
They're always, they're always
so it will take even longer. It will take even longer with those two. So.
See what
What did Trevor put?
he put the quietest of the chambers ladies has began to speak. Obviously wants to speak about
But Angelica.
That's alright, isn't it? That's fine.
She's not as quiet as you think, Trevor.
No,
Trust
she's
me.
not. It's
Maybe
just
she has
like
been
just-
here, but
Yeah, on the live, she don't speak as much, but obviously that's because more me and Dad are chatting
no,
away
it's just
hard.
more- well,
You know what I
You
mean?
feel more comfortable in front of the camera, that's all it is.
Yeah.
that's all right. You're in front of it anyway, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I know.
You're there. But you can always wear a mask.
Yeah, so then no one knows what you look like.
Ah, you can wear them. wear the mask and then talk from
And then no one will hear me. Just in case anyone doesn't know about the World Bank. You know about this?
A bit louder.
The World Bank. This is not actually relevant to the subject, but I just.
But it is kind of. Because it's an identity issue in the long run, because it's still to do with the World Bank.
Yeah.
Are the ones who are gonna who are advocating for the enforcement of identity
And
worldwide, the vaccine.
This shows, the World Bank website shows that COVID-19 coronavirus testing kits, were purchased in countries in 2017 and 2018. And so it shows on here, you see, let me zoom in a little bit. You've got European Union, United States, Ireland, Netherlands, Belgium, UK, Italy, so everywhere, basically. Japan, Hungary, Croatia, everywhere, yeah. They've all bought these in 2017. Isn't that interesting? Why would they be buying them in 2017?
No, it's a myth and a legend and a fable.
Yeah, it's
a conspiracy.
I'm waiting anyway.
That's what they're
I put it
telling
on my story, so I'm waiting for the fact. But also,
Instagram, which is owned by Facebook.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the fact checkers to come for me. But like I put on my Instagram again, you fact checkers ain't coming for me again, because now I know who you are, and I already knew who they were anyway. Yeah, these fact checkers. Supported by Bill Gates, and funded by Bill Gates, the fact checkers, the ones that block out the info on your stuff. Yeah, it's cool. Come again, because I'll just be putting on there. See, look, I see Bill Gates is on his bull again.
See, this is also another reason why we do these things the way we do. I'm going to say this last thing. We're going to be finishing just now, but I am absolutely adamantly against Uncle Tom's. And you two are laughing because, I tell it like it is, because there's a whole heap of them out there, Uncle Tom coconuts, right? And there's some, I'm a Christian and I try my best to be a Christian, so I don't want to call them what I really want to call them, right? But there's some real bougie stuck up their ass, coconut, Uncle Tom niggers who come onto lives and Facebook and certain things and they chat pure fart, right? And they act like they're very intellectual and they're there, blah 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 blah. Allow it. If you're not gonna call a spade when you need to, right? You got a problem, because at the end of the day, you're acting like, oh, I'm an activist and I'm standing up for. But what are you really saying? Because the things that you should say, you're not. Which is why I do what I do the way I do. And then now, somebody like, oh no, I'm not watching what he's saying. You stay there and carry on being an Uncle Tom coconut, right? Carry on. Because you will find and see one day how far that's going to get you. You understand?
Speak your mind,
Listen, I'm tired of it, because at the end of the day, these they're doing their things and they're like, oh, because they're trying to be all things to all men.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't have to be all things to all of nothing. No. I just need to be me.
Yeah.
Right? And I will say the truth as it is, as much as I can understand, and as much as the Almighty God will give me the ability to say and to speak. I will speak it just like that. It doesn't matter whether people are pleased or not pleased.
Yeah.
And who liked what I said and who didn't like it. I don't care.
And that's why no matter how many fact checker, whatever people, little bots that they send to come and message right on your comments and all these things, because that's what they do. Send these little people to comment back on what you said when you're especially if you make things when you're putting some truth. When you're putting some truth out.
Well, exactly, and they want to challenge, or you get those people who you think would even have some kind of agreement with you, and what they're basically doing is they leave it and they air you.
Yeah, when they then can't say nothing.
You know?
More. Yeah.
No, they just
Trolls. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Trolls.
You know,
that's what they're called. Yeah.
Or what I've seen, I'll tell you, what I've seen, and again, you know, I've used those words already. I won't repeat the words, but there's some proper coconut Uncle Tom niggers out there. I've seen them come and they've looked on my live, they've looked on my page, and they've gone and done their own little thing.
Yeah.
They're more sophisticated version. Listen, I don't even want to tell them what they need to go and do, right?
Yeah.
You understand? I don't want to tell them what they need to go and do, but they need to go and do it fast.
Yeah.
Right? They've come, they've looked, let me do a more sophisticated version of the same. No, you need to shut your mouth.
Exactly.
Right? Because all you're doing, you're trying to push up your head underneath people.
Yeah.
Right? Don't do that.
If you've got something to say and you see that somebody's already discussing it, you come and write your comment. Yeah.
Right? But no, what they'll do, they'll read, they'll listen. Oh, let me make my version, because I can do it in a more sophisticated way. And
I don't agree with that bit, so I'm just going to pinch it out.
I won't be stepping on people's toes, you see.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
He's asking who with that.
Trevor, you go and look for yourself. I'm not naming names. I won't do that.
No, we don't name the names.
I'm not naming names, but I'm just disgusted by it, because what for? You know, because this is the whole point of what we're talking about. That this is exactly what they do. Let's divide.
Exactly.
You know, put them over there, you over there, intellectuals there. You know, because maybe, you know, some of them they feel that they're Chuck. Anyway, remember that's never say nothing more. You know, because no, man, it vexes me, because we need to stop this rubbish. You know, we need to stop it. Okay, we don't necessarily all have to say exactly the same thing the same way. We don't have to agree on every single word. But what we do need to know is that there are some things where we do need to stand with one another.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, let me do my thing my way in my corner. But then at the end of the day, all you're doing is pushing up your head underneath people. Right? And I'm really trying to say it very nicely. And I'm vexed about it. I don't like this behavior.
Trevor, it's not happening.
No, Roy, you're right. It's not even about the rehashing that I'm saying. It's about the fact that what they're doing is that they're saying, oh yes, maybe there's a valid subject here, but I want to take it in a way that will please some of those people. That's not me. You know, that we're not trying to please. But the reason why we're not trying to please anybody in that sense, because what must be said must be said.
Yeah.
What's he saying there?
Yeah.
You know, and it's vexing me, because I'm looking and thinking, why are you doing that? You know, I don't actually mind, because, you know, there's no copyright on anything that I say or do, you know. So it's not like that, but just that, make it plain and make it right. You know, because otherwise you get things that, well, you know, I'm not sure, because, you know, they say that it's a fable. Like I said at the beginning, you know, it's a fable and a legend and a conspiracy. No, say it for what it is. Yeah? Because they won't. Who's Tom? Very funny, man. Because, you know, there's things there like we said, Nebuchadnezzar, the story of what he had done in bringing those of Judah into Spain and Portugal as slaves. Oh, it's a fable and a legend and a myth. Why? Because you don't want us to know. But then now you see we've got some of these push-up people, right? The ones who are busy pushing up their head under.
Yeah.
Anyway, I nearly said what I did. Right? Those ones who are pushing up their head underneath people, they are the ones who say, oh yeah, you know, they said it's a myth. and a legend.
That's not true.
No, you need to stop that, because when you put it out like that, you're actually not helping people. You're acting like you are, but you're not helpful, right? Because you're bringing confusion.
Yeah.
See, because then they're like, oh well, because and we're not here to offend anybody, but nah, stop it.
Telling the truth, and
Stop
that's
it.
why the phrase is the truth.
Stop it.
Because it's not going to please everyone, and it's not going to make everyone happy. Of course it wouldn't. That's why it's hidden,
Exactly.
and it's not the truth. Yeah, do you think that they're just hiding all this information for no reason? Because it's just, we love it, we want to just hide. They know that it's not going to please everybody to hear these things, especially the people who have been, raised and, indoctrined into this is already the history of the world, what they've been fed, and they don't want to accept anything else. Of course, it's not going to please them. I don't I'm very loud.
I've heard you teaching, Trevor. That's cool.
Yeah, but I'm sure, Trevor, there's probably things that, once again,
That some people will find it offensive, but that's up to them,
Your
isn't it?
intention is not to offend, but people take offense from how they perceive what you said.
Yeah, and that's just the truth, But that's with everything. There's nothing that you can really, when you're teaching or when you're giving out the truth or things, there's many things that you're going to say or reveal that people are not going to want to hear, because if they've already been fed, like I said, a certain doctrine or a certain truth already, this is now challenging what they've already, what they know to be true and real in their own head. So of course, they don't want to hear that.
That's right. So I think we've given enough information on that subject. What's that?
Yeah,
They take it how they want to.
Amen. That's right. Yeah, let them take it how they do. You're absolutely correct. So I mean, there's more, and I'm not here to be the definitive answer, or to be the historian. What's the word?
Yeah, sure, right. Yeah, sure, right, Trevor. To the
to the thing, But the thing is this, right? It has to be said.
Yeah.
I felt that I just had to say, don't try to take people for heeding.
Yeah.
Right? Some people coming on here, they know what they're doing. When they're coming and they're chatting, blah, 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 they know what they're doing. All right? And so that's enough about that. Next week, we're changing direction slightly, but not exactly. Interesting enough, and I'll tell you why, because I just did something to see just what would come up, and it just, in fact, just confirmed exactly why we need to talk about that subject. Next week, we're going to talk about the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Children.
Yeah.
So now I just said, let me just do a little Google. Look at the out of order rubbish that they put up. Look at that.
So that's the picture that they chose to take.
Right? That's the picture that they've chosen. Now, God bless the heart of that child.
Yeah.
All right, but let me tell you something. And this has to be said before I come off of here. They want us to think, right, that this is the depiction, of the black people, and this is what it's all about. And we are working for them, for their good, because of this. There's many black children in Africa and Caribbean and elsewhere who don't look like that, right? But that's the picture that they have to put there on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And then underneath, the first thing that every child has the right to survival, protection, and education. Anyway, the rest of it, we're going to go into it next week, because we're going to talk about what they say. What's he said?
He said it's I open the Spanish Jamaica connection.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
People didn't even know.
You know,
But next week,
will be probably, if this was an eye opener, this one, the tear out your eye.
yeah,
Because you know, these things,
I'm a bit wrong.
they annoy me, and they need to stop it. I can't. You guys read it. Tell me what's going on.
Acts, sins are most rude among the Europeans.
I think it means sex, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Are most rude among the Europeans and Asians. It is not normal or accepted behavior from our people. Oh, okay. I know what he's talking about. It must be referring to
The picture that I put.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that next week, because you know a lot of things. This is what I said. I used that word, didn't I? I said for them it's genoship.
Yeah.
Which I know non-Jamaicans or maybe non-Caribbeans, they didn't get that. I think the English word maybe that I would want there is, I would say possibly subterfuge, right?
Yeah.
In fact, let me just make sure of the definition, because, you know, I'm a Jamaican as well at the end of the day, and I have Jamaican language in my head too, so sometimes I have to look for.
We're all like that. Because there's lots of things that I don't say.
I can't find another word for it. But I think
you're right. I think it is that.
yes. You see, the definition of subterfuge, deception used to achieve an end.
Yeah.
A deceptive stratagem or device. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
This is it.
Employed to conceal something, to evade an argument. So it is the exact word. Right? For a Jamaican, it is genoship.
Yeah.
Right? But for everybody else who doesn't understand that, it is subterfuge. And this is what, and I believe even what I showed you just now that we'll talk about next week, the United Nations Convention for the Rights of the Child, it is subterfuge for those dirty, nasty pedophiles.
Yeah.
All right? And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it because it's about time that we talk about that.
Yeah, because we only slightly touched on
it. Right? Because we're going to talk about it right from the root. And that is the root, because this is where they expect you to put your money.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes up is some little small black impoverished looking child, and the first thing they're telling you is donate and blah blah blah. We're going to talk about it. It is subterfuge.
There's a reason why you see those adverts on television. Yeah.
So thank you everybody. It was lovely. The interaction was great.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
God bless. So here we go.
Yeah.
By the time Facebook always comes up. So we're on.